This is the briefing video for the meeting on 14th of October 2024, 6 p.m. at the Township Hall. Normal opening, we have a decently long opening. We call to order, invocation pledge, roll call, approval of agenda, approval of past meeting minutes, treasurer's report, paying the bills, fire department report, planning commission report, planning and zoning report, parks and recreation committee report, maintenance and grounds report, cemetery report, visiting official and candidate updates. Real close to the election now, so we might have some of those, we might not. Our first public comment. And then after that, we have our set of decision items. First one being Beagle Playgrounds equipment. So this has been discussed a few times over the last few years. We waited the 1 year because we had applied for a grant that ended up not coming through. That was last year, the year before that. Seems like the proposals were unnecessarily high on the budget. This went through at a decent discussion at the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. The motion that they passed was for an option A and an option B. I dive more into those here, but essentially option A is a little cheaper, can be done within the budget structure that we have now. Option B, the board would have to increase the budget for this year, which brings up the question of should the Parks and Recreation budget then be decreased for next year, kind of make up for that, use 2 years or most of 2 years worth of budget or not to get a bigger, nicer piece, or kind of preserve that for next year and still do more stuff next year. So that was kind of the debate there. Next, we have and those proposals are in here, so you can look through them, they're broken down pretty well. Next, we have the senior millage snow plowing. This is a proposal like we've had for the last couple of years to do snow plowing for seniors with part of the senior millage money, and then whatever is left afterwards go to save seniors. That comes back around in the budget adjustments. It doesn't line up with our fiscal year very well. Next, we have the REU schedule, a resolution, REU resolution, and this specifically for that one commercial project in the planned unit development in the business park. Right now, everyone agrees. The township agrees, the county agrees, all the parties agree. The developer agrees as well on how those are going to be calculated. This is essentially to avoid a change in calculation later down the road, so that everyone knows what the agreement is. Fairly simple in how it's coming out there. Next, we have a Voya resolution, and this is a company that the township previously used for retirement. We don't use them anymore for retirement. We use John Hancock, but Voya is a previous one. And no one currently in the township has access to that account, can't sign off on anything for any previous employees or anything, if anything is left in there, from what I understand. It's supposed to be switched over to John Hancock, but not all of it made it at some point. And so we need to put the current clerk and treasurer on there so that things can be signed off on. Next, we have the building department admin. And so this and the next one, the FOIA coordinator, are important functions in the township, obviously. And there's an aspect, there's a worry about either the previous clerk coming back, a new clerk coming in without experience, one of the two, and a potentiality for mistakes being made, that type of thing. And it's also beneficial to have a good incentive and clarification of roles for that type of thing for staff. And so you have a little, tiny, it's not much because the townships are structured the way they are by state law. So we can't exactly change that, even if some of that would potentially be beneficial to clarify some of that. But so this is a step in that direction, trying to clarify, trying to incentivize some stuff, trying to minimize potential damage in the future with personnel changes. To designate a specific building department admin, there's one. Amy is already doing that. She's been doing that. She's been trying to clean it up. The paperwork has been a mess. So she's been working on that. And then Angie, who's fairly new, as the FOIA coordinator, that normally falls under the clerk's role. And the clerk has a wide variety of things. A lot of stuff fall under that office. And it's oddly structured by the way the state kind of throws stuff at the office as well, which somewhat makes sense, somewhat maybe doesn't fully make sense. But this kind of separates those out, right? And essentially what the idea is here, and I've included this in the quarterly budget adjustments, is to give a $1 an hour raise. So it's quite a bit, and as far as in comparison to the budget goes, not too much. And because we're halfway through a fiscal year, it only comes to about $1,000 somewhere in there each. And so I've included that in the quarterly budget adjustments. Obviously, if the board decides against those designations, then we'd have to adjust that verbally in the quarterly budget adjustments as well. Kind of similar with the potential for the playground. Right, if the board decided to go way up on that, we could verbally adjust it in here or leave it until the next quarterly adjustment. Or if you make a quarterly adjustment, you designate some money, but don't designate a person, you can leave it there, adjust it later should be fine. So then we get into our discussion items. There's one discussion item, the financial oversight, which we've talked about a few times. We had the quotes from some major CPA firms of reporting to the board on what financially is and is not occurring at what times in the township, which I think is useful, and that can minimize damage. Even if someone's attempting to cause damage, at least people will be informed, that type of thing. And then if someone just new comes in and doesn't know what they're doing, they can step in and help and show that type of stuff. So it can be useful there too. It's kind of like training wheels getting going, but they are not cheap. They're expensive. And so Christy had our auditor mention to her that there's someone in Muskegon, in the city of Muskegon, that did well at some of these things, Jessica Ray. And so she had reached out to her to see if she would do something like that and how much. $75 per hour, which is significantly less than $200 to $300 for the CPA firms normally for that type of work. She'd only be available on Fridays, but that should be able to be worked out decently well. And did specifically ask if she'd be willing to make up a report to go to the board on a monthly basis, and she is. So kind of want to discuss if we want to push further in that direction, if we want to push in the CPA direction, if we want to get something in November, December, at what time frame the board kind of wants to tackle this as we're going through the elections and positions will be changing here. Now, I included, just so people could see, because we've been in some inquiry and some push on the oddity of the potential of a clerk that resigned and wasn't going to come back and is coming back, and all these issues, township not doing anything about that. There's a limited role for what the township can do in something like that. I mean, excluding people from elections is, if they meet the qualifications, they meet the qualifications. If they don't, they don't, right? So some of them end up being pretty simple as far as it goes. And she doesn't have like a previous felony conviction having to do with the government or something. We did have someone try to file with that issue, which is interesting. Unconstitutional according to the state constitution, right? So what was that one? But this one, I included the letter. Now, Christy pointed out, she read through it, that I included one of the earlier letters. I apparently accidentally attached not the final. And the major correction I made in there when I read through is that the lawyers have written in that Tracy was held office as a Republican, but she actually held office as a Democrat. All right. So I think that's the only major change, only major obvious change that was in there. I should have attached the other letter, the finalized version with that correction, but I accidentally did not. All right. And so everyone can just see it, right? That's all the stuff in there. That's what's there. You can read it yourself if you want. Next, we have the public and board comment, the final one, and the conclusion of the meeting. So if you have any questions, thoughts, ideas, comments, concerns, feel free to reach out. My direct line to the office is area code 231-332-6700, or email supervisor@daltontownship.org. Otherwise, this is Jeff signing off. Until next time.